Part 1. The Vanishing. It started on a Thursday. Ordinary, forgettable, cloudy sky, half-drunk coffee on the kitchen counter, a shopping list left crumpled on the fridge. Nothing about that day screamed, "This is the day your world will split." Open. And yet, by midnight, my husband of 6 years had vanished without a trace. His name is Daniel, 35 years old. Marketing executive. Quiet type. Predictable to the point of irritation, if I'm being honest. He never stayed out late. Never missed dinner. Never turned off his phone. So when he didn't text to say he'd be late or answer my four increasingly anxious calls, I knew something was wrong at first. I told myself to calm down. Maybe he'd lost his phone. Maybe a meeting ran over. But by 9 p.m., I was pacing. The living room, the soft hum of the refrigerator, the only sound keeping me company. By 10:30 p.m., I'd called his office. No answer. At midnight, I called the hospitals. By 1 a.m., I was in full-blown panic mode. Not the movie version, where the woman dramatically sobs on the floor. Mine was quiet, cold, a stillness that creeps into your bones and won't leave. I sat in our kitchen, phone clenched in one hand, Daniel's hoodie clutched in the other. I barely slept. The next morning, I filed a missing persons report. The police were polite, but measured. Adults are allowed to go off the grid, the officer said. He's not in immediate danger unless there's evidence of foul play. He didn't say what I was thinking. Sometimes people just leave, but Daniel wouldn't do that. Not without saying something. Not to me. Right? I spent the day retracing his steps. His car was still parked at the office, exactly where it should have been. His coworker said he left around 6:10 p.m. Like always, no one saw anything unusual. No angry phone calls. No arguments. Just Daniel, grabbing his coat and heading out into the rainy evening. Security footage confirmed it. He walked out the front doors alone, umbrella in hand. And then ... nothing. No ATM transactions. No cell activity. No credit card swipes. It was like he disappeared into thin air. By the second night, my fear evolved into something uglier. Suspicion. I started going through his things, emails, socials, notes in his desk drawers. Daniel wasn't the type to keep secrets, but now I wasn't so sure. I scanned his laptop for any recent activity. Nothing out of the ordinary. A few emails about project timelines. A Spotify playlist called Morning Commute. And one open tab that made my breath hitch. Best places to disappear. The link led to a blog post, dated a month earlier. That night, I couldn't sleep. My heart wouldn't let me. I began imagining worst-case scenarios. Did he leave me? Was he hurt? Kidnapped? Or, God forbid, dead? But as the storm of worry built, something deeper, colder began to settle in my gut. What if he chose to disappear? The next morning, I got a call. Not from Daniel. From a blocked number. I hesitated. Then answered. Silence. Then a low, gravelly voice. You should stop asking questions. Before I could respond, the call ended. I stood there, heart thudding in my chest. That wasn't a prank. That was a threat, and suddenly I realized I might not be the only one looking for Daniel. The next 24 hours were a blur. I reported the call to the police, who barely hid their skepticism. Did the caller say a name? No, I replied. Did they reference your husband directly? No, but it was about him. I'm sure of it. We'll file it, but unless there's a second call or a specific threat, we can't do much. I left the station more frustrated than when I arrived. I wasn't imagining this. Something real was happening. But nobody believed me. I needed answers. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I broke into Daniel's private storage unit. He'd rented it 2 years ago when we downsized apartments. I'd been there once when he first moved boxes of old college stuff and business files. He kept the key on his ring, and I still had a spare. Inside was dust, silence and secrets. There were the expected things. Binders, photo albums, a box of cables that no one ever uses but can't throw away. But there was also a plain black duffel bag in the corner, half buried under an old coat. I opened it slowly. Inside, a second cell phone, 2 burner phones still in packaging, a passport under a different name, David Grant, and $6,000 in cash. I staggered back, heart hammering. What the hell had Daniel gotten himself into? And then I noticed the envelope at the bottom of the bag. My name was written on the front. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a note, written in Daniel's handwriting. If you found this, I'm sorry. I never wanted you involved. Please, don't try to find me. It's safer for you this way. Tell them you don't know anything, because you don't. That's the truth. I love you always. I read it 3 times, then sat down on the cold concrete floor and cried. That night I didn't sleep again. I stared at the duffel bag, the burner phones, the cash. I replayed our last month together, the odd pauses in conversation, the way he started locking his laptop screen the moment I walked in, how he forgot our anniversary dinner, something he never would have done before. Daniel had been preparing to disappear. The question was, from whom? And why? I tried the burner phone dot. It had one saved contact. No name, just a number dot, no recent messages. One sent text. Weeks ago. Package secured. Moving to step 2. My stomach flipped dot. I copied the number. Unsure what to do. Should I call? It? What if it traced back to something dangerous? Instead, I Googled it. Nothing. Then I reverse searched it through a paywalled service. One hit. A James Everett. No location? Just a name. The next morning, I called Daniel's younger sister. Rachel, we hadn't spoken much over the past year. She thought I was too intense. But she loved Daniel. When I told her he was missing, she gasped. What do you mean missing? Have you called the police? Hospitals? I've done everything, I said. But Rachel, I think he planned this. I filled her in. The storage unit, the burner phones, the fake passport dot. She was silent for a long time. Then she whispered, "Oh my God, what?" I thought he was being paranoid, she said. He asked me a few months ago if he could store some things in my garage. Said it was just in case. I thought he was being weird. I didn't ask questions. I was stunned. Did he tell you anything else? No, she said. But now that I think about it, there were men parked near our street a few times. They didn't look like neighbors. Did you see their plates? No, but they didn't belong there. That afternoon, I got another call from a blocked number. This time, I recorded it. Sane, gravelly voice. This time, more direct. You're asking too many questions? Stop now, or it gets worse. They hung up again. I took the recording to the police. Again, they said they'd look into it. Again, I was left feeling helpless. I considered going public, posting online. Maybe others had gone through something similar. Maybe someone recognized the voice. But I hesitated. What if going public made it worse? Instead, I made copies of everything. Every file, message, note. I gave one to Rachel. I had another in a safety deposit box. I even left a copy with my coworker, Leah, just in case anything happened. Leah thought I was being paranoid. I'm sure he's just having a crisis, she said, but I could see the pity in her eyes. Nobody believes the woman who says her perfect husband has vanished into thin air, especially when he left behind a note telling her not to look. Then, late one night, as I was reviewing Daniel's work laptop, I found something I had missed to dot an encrypted folder. I almost missed it named something innocuous, like Q4 reports _ 2022. I tried opening it, but it was password protected. I tried his birthday. No luck. Our anniversary. Still, no luck. Then I tried my birthday. The folder opened. Inside were dozens of PDFs, image files, scanned documents. One of the first was a classified-looking document labeled Contractor Brief, Echo Prime. I opened it, blinking in disbelief. Operative. Assigned to digital asset recovery. Name, David Grant. Cover employment, PR, marketing. Region, East Coast, United States. Primary objective, infiltration and surveillance of Alphatech systems. Alphatech was one of Daniel's biggest clients. This wasn't marketing. This was espionage. The man I married wasn't who I thought he was. I scrolled through the files. Hands trembling. There were photos Daniel at meetings, covert shots of people I didn't recognize, maps with red pins. and a list of aliases. My Daniel had 4 separate identities, all listed under a private intelligence firm I'd never heard of. The final document was a scanned letter, half redacted with a signature that looked military. Operative Grant is hereby authorized for Level 3 disengagement protocol. If compromised, initiate Echo Fade. Burn all assets. Do not engage. Echo Fade. Was that what this was? Had Daniel gone dark? Had he been compromised? And most terrifying of all, was I now considered one of those burnable assets? I locked the laptop, closed every file, and for the first time, I accepted the truth. Daniel hadn't been kidnapped. He wasn't on the run from criminals. He had been part of something bigger, darker, something he never intended me to discover, but I had. And now they knew I had. I didn't know if I could still trust the police or anyone. So I packed a bag, took the burner phones, the fake passport, and the laptop, and I left. Not forever. Just enough to disappear for a while until I could figure out what the hell my husband had been involved in. And if I could ever find him. Again, part 2. The disappearance protocol. I left the house just after midnight. No destination. No plan. Just me, a duffel bag filled with burner phones, 1 fake passport, my husband's encrypted laptop, and a level of adrenaline I'd never felt before in my life. My hands were trembling on the steering wheel. Not from fear, but from awareness. The kind that settles in when you realize the world is not what you thought it was. That your husband was someone else entirely. And that maybe you weren't supposed to survive knowing that. I drove for hours, avoiding main highways, switching lanes constantly, checking my mirrors every few minutes. At some point, I ended up in a rural town 3 hours outside the city. It was the kind of place that didn't ask questions. The motel clerk barely looked at me when I checked in using the name from the fake passport, Alyssa Grant. I paid in cash. No ID, no digital trail. Somewhere Daniel would have been proud of how fast I adapted. That thought hit me like a knife. Was I becoming like him? Had I been living beside a stranger for 6 years? Or was this a version of him he never wanted me to meet? In the motel room, I opened the laptop again. I returned to the Echo Prime folder, diving deeper into the encrypted documents. The more I read, the more horrifying the picture became. This wasn't some side hustle. This was a full-blown covert operation. A sanctioned mission, it seemed, by a group I couldn't fully identify. Black Ops level. There were other names listed alongside. Daniel's alias, Operative Grant. Pseudonyms, regions, status updates. Some marked as inactive, others marked as compromised. One name kept appearing, Everett. James Everett. The same number saved on the burner phone. I went back to the number and decided finally to call. 3 rings. Then a deep voice answered. Where did you get this number? I paused. From Daniel and his wife. Silence. Then, carefully, you weren't supposed to find this. I didn't try to. He's missing. I found his storage unit and I need to stop. No, I snapped. You listen to me. I have a right to know what happened to my husband. I have his laptop. I've read the files. If you don't talk to me, I'll go public. That got his attention. A pause. Then, stay where you are. I'm coming to you. He hung up. For a moment, I panicked. I'd given away too much. Shown my hand. Revealed my location. But part of me had made peace with it. I couldn't live in hiding forever. If there were answers to be found, they wouldn't come from sitting in motel rooms reading redacted PDFs. They would come from people like Everett. He arrived 2 hours later, black SUV. No plates. He didn't knock. Just let himself in. That terrified me more than anything else. He didn't ask. He already had access. He was tall. Late 40s, military cut, clean-shaven, eyes like slate. And despite his calm tone, he radiated danger. I'm James Everett, he said. And what you found is dangerous. I stood my ground. I want the truth. He studied me for a moment. Daniel broke protocol, he said finally. He wasn't supposed to involve you. The second he did, He compromised both of you. What? Is this espionage? No, Everett said. Worse. He pulled up a chair. 3 years ago, your husband was recruited by a subcontracted intelligence firm specializing in digital counter-surveillance. Alpha Tech was the target. Yes, but not because they were corrupt, because they were compromised. By who? Not. Who? He corrected. What? I blinked. I don't understand. Everett leaned forward. There are entities, data brokerage networks, private black market buyers who don't operate within any government's oversight. Think anonymous tech billionaires funding digital surveillance for profit. Alpha Tech developed a prototype and an eye capable of harvesting private data beyond anything you can imagine. My skin went cold, and Daniel found out. He found out too much. He wasn't supposed to. He was meant to observe, monitor. Instead, he started digging, asking the wrong questions, accessing the wrong files. I remembered the note, if you found this, I'm sorry. I never wanted you involved. Everett continued. When Daniel realized what was coming, he initiated his own fade. He didn't tell us. He went rogue. Why? Because he thought someone on the inside was feeding intel to the target. You mean someone on your side? Everett looked at me, then nodded. So now what? I asked, what happens? To me? That depends, he said. Have you copied the laptop? I lied. No. Good. Because if anyone else gets access to those files, anyone you're putting targets on their backs to. He stood. You need to disappear. I can help you do that. No, I said. I want to find Daniel. He hesitated. He doesn't want to be found. That's not your call. He gave me one long look. If you keep pushing, they'll come after you too. Think hard about what you're willing to lose. And with that, he left. I didn't sleep. His words rang in my ears. Think hard about what you're willing to lose. I'd already lost my husband. What more could they take? The next morning, I left the motel and headed south. I didn't know where I was going, just following a trail that didn't exist. But I did have one clue. Before Everett had arrived, I had scanned one more file dot and address. Scribbled in a margin, in handwriting, I recognized Daniels.st, Jude's Retreat. Augusta, Georgia. It looked like a rehab center, quiet, religious affiliated, not the kind of place you'd expect someone with Daniel's background to hide. But maybe that was the point. I booked a flight under Alyssa Grant. When I arrived at St. Jude's, the receptionist, a middle-aged woman with a kind smile, asked who I was looking for. I lied again. My brother, I said. David Grant. She typed on her computer. Pause. I'm sorry, we don't have a David Grant here. My stomach dropped. Are you sure? He may have checked in under a different name. I can't disclose that, she said gently. I leaned. And please, I just need to know if he's okay. Something in my voice must have cracked. She hesitated. Then she said, wait here. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Then she returned, with a man behind her. Not Daniel, but I recognized him from one of the surveillance photos in the files, one of the inactive operatives. He looked shocked to see me. How did you find this place? He asked quietly. I need to find my husband. He hesitated. He was here 2 weeks ago, but he left. Why? I don't know. He said something about a meet in Charleston. Said if anything went wrong, he'd leave a signal. Signal? He nodded. Something only you would recognize. That night, I sat alone in a rented Airbnb, staring out the window. I had no idea what I was chasing, but I knew one thing for certain. If Daniel left me a signal, I would find it. And then I'd find him. No matter who or what stood in the way. Part 3. The signal. The man from St. Jude's had said, if anything went wrong, he'd leave a signal. Something only you would recognize. But what was that supposed to mean? We shared so many inside jokes, memories, symbols over the years. It could be anything. A street name, a book title, a date circled on a calendar, a lyric, a scent, a restaurant. My mind ran in circle. The only clue I had was Charleston. That was where Daniel had headed next. If I was going to find the signal and him, that's where I needed to be. The next morning, I rented a car under my alias and headed toward South Carolina. As I drove, my phone buzzed. One of the burner phones Daniel had kept in the storage unit. There was a new text. Check the window seat. Charleston Cafe, 22 King Street, noon. No name, no sender info. Just that. I pulled over and stared at the screen. The timing was impossible. Nobody should have known I was coming, unless Daniel was watching me, or someone else was. Either way, I didn't have much of a choice. I headed straight there. Charleston Cafe was tucked between a vintage bookstore and a florist, nestled in the historical part of the city. It looked exactly like the kind of place Daniel and I used to frequent on weekend trips. Cozy booths, chalkboard menus. The scent of cinnamon and espresso in the air. I walked in slowly, scanning the room. There was no sign of him. I checked. The window seat. It was empty, except for a single brown envelope taped to the underside of the table. My heart skipped. I slipped into the booth, careful not to attract attention, and pulled the envelope free. It had one word written on the front. Emily. My name, not the alias. He knew. I opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside, a flash drive. A printed photo of us at the beach from years ago, and a note, handwritten, if you're reading this, then things got worse. And you didn't listen to me, which means I underestimated you. Again. There are people who will want to use you to get to me. Don't trust anyone. Not even Everett. You always said I had one tell when. I lied. Use that. The signal is buried in the beach photo. I love you. I'm sorry. My hand shook as I reread the letter. Again and again. The world seemed to tilt under me. The flash drive. The photo. The tell. I remembered the photo instantly. It was taken on our 3rd anniversary. Daniel had just lost his job and we were broke, but he insisted we celebrate anyway. He cooked dinner. We drank wine out of paper cups on the sand, and we laughed until our faces hurt. In the photo, he had his arm around me, smiling at the camera, but his eyes were glancing slightly to the side. That was it. His cell. Whenever Daniel lied, he wouldn't blink. His face stayed still, but his eyes always shifted. Left, I stared at the photo. His eyes were locked on a specific part of the beach. A half-buried driftwood post behind me. That had to be the real signal. I booked a room nearby and opened the flash drive using an encrypted browser. It contained only one file, an audio message. Daniel's voice. I didn't want this. Any of this. I joined to protect people. I thought I was doing something good. But I found out the people we worked for, they were selling access. Backdoors into people's phones, their emails, their lives. Everett knew. Maybe even higher-ups. I confronted someone. A week later, one of our team disappeared. 2 days later, I found a tracker on my car. I faked my burnout, burned my safe house, left everything. If you're listening to this, I need you to go back to the beach. The real one. You'll find what you need there. The audio ended. My mind was a blur of fear, disbelief, and some small, foolish flicker of hope. He was alive, and he was still trying to protect me. I made the drive to Folly Beach the next morning, the place. From the photo. It hadn't changed much. Same broken fence. Same windswept dunes. Same quiet hush of waves rolling in like secrets. I found the driftwood within minutes. Buried beneath it, wrapped in plastic, was another envelope. Inside, a key, a code written on a torn napkin, and a list of names. Half the names were marked with the red X. The others had annotations like compromised, quieted, or worse, leveraged. And at the bottom, in small print, next extraction, 3 days. Warehouse 17, Terminal Lane, Savannah. It wasn't just about hiding anymore. Daniel was planning something, a rescue. A leak? Something big. And if I was going to find him before then, I needed to get ahead of the people chasing him. Back in Charleston, I pulled every connection I had. I used a contact from my university days, a journalism grad student named Zoe, who now freelanced for independent watchdog site. I trusted her, barely. I told her the bare minimum. Government adjacent, data leak. My husband's involved. I need help verifying a meeting spot. She didn't ask questions. She owed me. That night, she texted, Warehouse 17 is real. Private storage. Leased under an LLC with ties to a shell company registered in Cyprus. Daniel wasn't hiding. He was setting a trap. I stared at the list of names again. 2 of them. I recognized from headlines. Corporate execs. Cybersecurity lobbyists. The others? I started digging with Zoe's help. I traced 3 more, and the pattern emerged. All of them were linked to private contractors who received bulk government contracts post-2019. All of them sat on boards or advisory panels that Daniel had mapped. Out of network, a black market intelligence ring posing as a consulting alliance. He hadn't just gone rogue. He was about to expose something massive, and that meant one thing. He needed backup, the next morning. I did something reckless. I texted. The burner number again. I found the signal. I'm in. Tell me where to go. This time, the reply came instantly. Savannah, Northside Park, 4 p.m. Come alone. No signature, no guarantee it was him. But I had no other choice, at 4 p.m. I stood near the faded carousel at Northside Park. Hands buried in my jacket, eyes scanning every corner. Children screamed in the distance. A couple argued near the swings. It was a normal day, and that only made it worse. Then I saw him. Hood up. Beard now. Slower gait, but it was Daniel alive that I ran. He caught me mid-step, pulling me close. His voice cracked. You shouldn't have come. Too bad, I whispered. I'm here now. He held me tighter, and then he said, They're already here. We need to move. Fast. Part 4. Extraction protocol. We didn't speak until we were 2 miles away. Daniel drove a beat-up sedan with Georgia plates. The windows were tinted. The car's console stripped of anything trackable. No GPS, no phone mount, no dash cam. The smell of coffee and engine oil filled the cabin, oddly comforting. I know you have questions, he said at last, eyes fixed on the road. Just give me 5 minutes before you ask them. I nodded. He looked older, tired, not physically, necessarily, but spiritually. Like someone who'd carried a secret so heavy for so long that it had reshaped him. He pulled off into an abandoned parking lot behind an old print shop. There were cameras his own, installed discreetly at each corner of the lot. I recognized his handwork. He'd always been meticulous. He finally exhaled, then looked at me. Really looked. You weren't supposed to find me. I shook my head. And yet, here we are, he smiled faintly. You were always the persistent one? I crossed my arms. Start from the beginning, no more half-truths. Daniel nodded. All right. He told me everything about Echo Prime, about the private firm that operated under the illusion of intelligence consultancy, but in reality funneled harvested data cell towers, emails, smart home feeds to offshore buyers, about how he was recruited after an internal whistleblower vanished, about how he was told the operation was sanctioned and legal. And I believed them, he said. At first. But it wasn't. He shook his head. Not even close. The deeper I got, the clearer it became they weren't working with the government. They were working around it, exploiting the gray zones. No oversight, no accountability. I remembered the names on the list. They tried to recruit me into the inner circle. Said I was ready. That's when I knew I had to get out. I frowned, and you didn't tell me because once I stepped out, anyone close to me became leverage, including you. The moment I vanished, they'd assume I gave you something, even if I didn't, which is why I kept it all off the record. But you did give me something. The signal. Daniel's mouth twitched, because I knew you wouldn't stop. We spent the next hour transferring files. He had way more than I'd seen. Hidden backups, physical and digital, stored in dead drops across 3 states. The information was explosive. Voice recordings, wire transfers, company memos. Even video footage grainy, but clear of a boardroom meeting where one exec casually discussed influence tokens and extraction-friendly politicians. I've been feeding it out slowly, Daniel explained. To people I trust, whistleblower networks, independent journalists. But it's not enough. We need one massive drop. One that can't be contained. I nodded. The warehouse. The extraction. He raised an eyebrow. You found that? I found everything. He smiled. Of course he did. The plan was already in motion. 3 nights from now, at Warehouse 17 in Savannah, a deal was scheduled. Not a transaction, an exit. Too high level. Executives were planning to fake their own deaths and disappear with digital ledgers containing years of transaction history. Enough evidence to bury everyone involved. Daniel wanted to intercept the extraction, capture everything. Leak it in real time. High risk, I said. He nodded. Which is why I was doing it alone? Not anymore. He didn't argue. That night, we set up in a safe house rented under the third alias dot. I watched him reassemble a disassembled drone, its components stored in various boxes marked as replacement water filters. When I asked how many backup identities he had, he answered without looking up. 7. 2 are still clean. One's burning now. Who are you, Daniel? He paused, then softly said, Still your husband. Just more than you knew. I swallowed hard. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me wanted to cry. But most of me just wanted him back. All of him. We practiced the warehouse. Approached 3 times. There were 2 entrances, main gate, and a freight side door. Both monitored, both locked down by private security. Our plan was simple. Daniel would breach from the back using the drone to map the heat. Signatures of guards. I would intercept the car that brought the execs posing as a private driver. While they were inside, Daniel would plant a relay device to extract data from their satellite uplink. Won't they expect surveillance? Not if we mask it as interference, he said. They'll assume it's proximity to the river. Common glitch. And if they find us? His eyes darkened. We vanish again. This time. For good. The next day, we met with Zoe. Driven down herself, refusing to trust digital transfers, Daniel handed her a drive. Don't open this, he warned. Until we call you. Once we do release everything. Everywhere. Understood, she said. And if you don't call, he paused. Then wait 12 hours. Then leak it. She nodded, that I could see it in her eyes. She was terrified, that so was. I doubt the day of the extraction arrived. We arrived 4 hours early. Parked across from a seafood packing warehouse 2 blocks away, Daniel sat still, staring at the blueprints on his tablet. I watched the lot through. Binoculars. Nothing. Quiet. At 10:14 p.m., the convoy arrived. 3 SUVs.